Hey, ladies and gentlemen, boys and Marys, this is me, Bradley G, here in Friendly Fridley. Welcome to Synergy Cafe. I've got a guest on that I just got introduced to from my friend Claude Haggerty, that I'm working with him on a sponsorship program. And my friend here, he also is working with him. But before we get into that, I want to let you know that this is also available. It's good. We're going live now on LinkedIn, so you can join us there, and YouTube, and then the Facebook on the Synergy Cafe page. So let me go into the green room and see if I can find John. He's in there somewhere. Tap, tap, tap. Knock, knock, knock. Hey there, John. John.
How are you?
He's there. How you doing?
Terrific and wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Terrific and wonderful. That's good to do it that way. See, I got to ask you, how do you pronounce your last name? Is it Cerbone?
Close enough.
Is that pretty good? Probably. Is it Italian?
Yeah, it is. Actually, there's two ancient saints with my last name. Okay. And there were some churches in Italy with my last name. So being an American, if your name's on it, you own it. So sooner or later, I got some church property in Italy coming, I guess.
Okay. Good to know. Well, here's what we got going on. John is the Trance-Master, and he's a hypnotist. I've got a local friend here in Minneapolis that's a hypnotist, and that's it's a fascinating thing because people wonder if it's real or if it's you got stooges that are up there and you hypnotize them and they're clucking like chickens and all that stuff. So people are always wondering about that. Is it a trick?
No, it's actually an alternate brainwave state that your mind goes in and out of a minimum of 7 times a day in order to stay mentally healthy. It's the way your brain is designed to cycle down stress. So when you zoned out in school years ago, for example,
okay,
because we had many teachers with a monotone voice, at least I did. Think of Ben Stein in The Wonder Years, for example, or in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, this is the planet Earth. And all the kids are just zoned out with glassy eyes. That's a form of hypnosis. And if the teacher called on you, which they love to do when people are zoned out, and you didn't have any idea what they were talking about, okay, and your friend leaned over and gave you the wrong answer, and you repeated it, and you both got in trouble while everybody else laughed, that was hypnosis and suggestion. Very simple.
How long have you been doing this?
My dad was a New York City police officer, and he used to come home taking his work with him emotionally. So at 3 years old, I wasn't too happy about the sounds coming out of my dad. So I went upstairs and I invented what turned out to be a self-hypnosis technique. Very simple, just staring at the ceiling, breathing, blinking my eyes a certain way. And I found that many years later, there was a man named Dr. Flowers, who was a dentist, that invented something similar. I hadn't heard of him until the 1990s. But I created this technique, and my parents would look into my bedroom and see me doing this and thinking it was strange. And then at 5 years old, they said, that seems to work for you. So teach us how to do that. So I was teaching self-hypnosis at 5 with a technique I created. So somewhere through my life, I was in various jobs. I was put to work at 12 years old. The first job was half minimum wage. I look back on that and I'm like, how did my parents let me do that? There's supposed to be tips involved, supposed to be. And through the years, I was hypnotizing people conversationally and in other ways who were planning in school to run away from home, say in grammar school, or run away or commit suicide in later schools, high school, college, whatever. And I didn't know these kids that well. They would kind of be just peripheral to me, not near me. And I would sit down with them and talk to them. And when they opened their eyes, they didn't want to run away anymore or do other terrible things to themselves. So I've been at this basically my entire life. It was like, I always tell people, walk, talk, potty, train, hypnosis, and not necessarily in that order, Okay. But it's something that's a part of who I am at this point, and it's evolved into quite a career. As I was telling you a little while ago before we went live, had I known I could have gotten paid to do this at those ages, I would have had a whole different work experience than driving trucks and carrying furniture and other things I did to pay for college,
So we got connected via Claude and his sponsorship program. He's showing us how to make more money with the entertainment element of it. But you got sort of started in the clinical kind of stuff, helping people use hypnosis for what, like weight loss and quitting smoking and self-esteem and all that stuff?
Yeah, well, let me give you a quick breakdown. When I first got officially trained, somewhere back in the late 80s or whatever it was, I was doing these workshops prior to that. I was calling it personal empowerment meditation. Because like who knew what the correct words were. It was just, I went out there and did it. And somewhere along the way, I ran into somebody who came to a class and said, I'm a certified teacher in the field of hypnosis, and you're one heck of a hypnotist, and I'm comping you into my class. And that was one of dozens of classes and certifications that I have at this point. And somewhere about 35 years ago, I got a birthday coming tomorrow, so we don't talk about numbers anymore, but I don't want to program my mind with that stuff. But I remember it was a woman and two men, and they came up to me at the end of a class, a lecture. I had about, I don't know, maybe 150 people in the room, and said to me, we have an event coming up. We just did it last week, but next year we're doing it, and it's to help raise money for children with cancer, and can you help us? We want you to do a show. So not knowing how to do a show, I said at the time, you mean like a lighthearted lecture demo? No. Those comedy hypnosis shows on the cruise ships, high school, college.
Oh.
And at the time, some classes were becoming available. And I had been messing around with some of this stuff prior to this and doing little mini shows and different things in different places. But I had never gone out and done a full bore show. So people say, how long are you doing shows for? Well, it depends. So the mini shows I was making up count. I don't know where you started, where you don't start, So I went and took training, and I haven't looked back since. And I've taken training with a couple of different people. My mentor was the late, great, for the magicians out there, Orman McGill, who saw me more or less as an equal. He said, you're already doing all of this stuff. I would bounce a question or two off him once in a while. Over there in the office room, I've got a stack of letters from him because, talking on the phone back in those days to him was big, expensive phone calls. And now it's all cell phones. We call everybody everywhere. But we used to write letters back and forth. And I really do treasure that stack of letters. And I have my copies on a hard drive that I sent him. And we would talk about doing the shows and last minute running in to do things. But everything I've done in this profession is to reinvent and reevaluate how this stuff works, to kick it up to a quantum higher level over and over and over again. So the clinical, I wasn't happy with the book they first gave me with suggestions in it. So, and there were situations with clients coming for things that I didn't have in a book. So I sat down and started to write my own suggestions. And I now have 4 hypnosis books that I've written that are in use now on 6 continents. I've yet to crack that very lucrative Antarctica market with penguins and frozen explorers down South Pole there. But otherwise, I've got books everywhere. And at the time, DVDs, we'll get to in a moment. I was then at some hypnosis conferences and saw some people doing faster inductions. The person who trained me initially more or less said, you must stick to every word in this script and every period, every comma. And if it's dot or 6 dots, I would sit there and do half-second pulses with my finger on my leg, to make sure I wasn't messing it up, because I was told it had to be very rigid. And I began to find out that everything that I was told was a limit really wasn't. So
all this stuff in the therapeutic method?
On the therapeutic or clinical end. We call it clinical in New York. I'm not allowed to use the T word for legal reasons in New York, but the rest of the world, New York, Connecticut, New Jersey, do what you want. So I wound up, I started writing scripts. And in the old days, I started to write them on, I remember one I wrote for an uncle of mine who had nausea from chemotherapy. I wrote it in pencil because that's what I had at the time in front of me. And I really I wish I didn't lose that piece of paper because it actually worked. I got rid of the upset stomach that he had. As a matter of fact, today is his birthday, actually. He's deceased many years now, but it's funny how that comes into my head today. But anyway, when I went to this conference and I saw some older people doing faster inductions, older men, and approached them, I said, that's pretty cool. How do I learn that? Oh, you're too young. And, the young whippersnapper type of thing was the answer I got. I wasn't too thrilled about that. I was driving home from that conference and sort of daydreaming in a state of hypnosis, actually. It's called highway hypnosis. We all do it when you learn how to drive a car. You're like white knuckling it and mechanical about it. Now it's like you're steering with your knee and fixing the radio and whatever else we do, fixing the mirror at the same time. And I thought to myself, how am I going to make this work faster? And then these thoughts went through my head. If you do this and this and this and you add that at the end, they go right out. And I tried it 2 days later, actually in my home over here. And this woman keeled over on the couch with this big smile on her face. And I said, well, that's pretty good. And then the second one took about 9 months to create, like having a baby, because I was approaching it logically. And now that I approach it subconsciously or in forms of hypnosis, the stuff just kind of shoots out of me at this point. I'm like a machine. All told, between speed inductions, which is probably 145 or so, and with derivatives closer to 180. And I give you some numbers earlier, but I'm recalculating the numbers. And with verbal inductions, it's probably closer to 190 or close to 200 someplace with derivatives of some of the speed inductions. Like there's a version A, B, C, D in some cases. And there's 3 of them I've designed for magicians. I've trained a lot of magicians to do speed inductions.
I suppose the faster induction is much better for the entertainment type of thing too, because you don't want that long, drawn out induction that's not entertaining. And
well, also too, for people who are performers to do a hypnosis induction. I was a member of a Rotary Club here in Staten Island, New York City, for 10 years or so, and they kept giving me a lot more work to do. So when I quit, they gave like 2 committees of 8, 16 people the jobs I was doing. So you go on from your life with that idea. But I know that in a Rotary Club, they give you 5 to 7 minutes to speak. And I can't stand there as fast as I speak from New York and do 25 minutes
right
in 5 to 7 minutes. If I'm on a television show, which I have been many times, including major networks, national networks, stuff that's been beamed via satellite elsewhere in the world, you're being given a tight window of time to work. And nobody's going to want to stand there and watch you and and this kind of thing where it drags it out and drags it out and drags it out. Everybody, I said this, and then I found that before I was born, Milton Erickson, a famous hypnotist, said this, was long since deceased by the time I heard of him. Everybody is in some form of hypnosis all the time. You go to a restaurant and see a stressed out waitress or a waiter running around with orders in a busy restaurant, they're zoned out.
Yeah, they're in their own world.
You go to the car, you're zoned out. You sit through a boring class someplace in school years ago, and you zone out, and the teacher calls on you, and you had no clue what's going on. And the teacher is upset you don't know the answer, but your friend leans over and gives you the wrong answer intentionally, and you both get in trouble, and everybody else laughs. That's hypnosis and suggestion. You ever laugh or cry at a movie? You're in hypnosis. You pass through it to fall asleep. You pass through it to wake up. So the people in the shows, I've had people approach me about, why don't you put fakes in your shows? Because I don't need to. I hypnotize them very deeply. And anybody who's going to put a fake in their show, as you asked the question about, is committing career suicide, because
you can't depend on those people.
Pardon me?
You can't really depend on those people, the fakes or the stooges and stuff. You don't know what.
Yeah, because sooner or later they're going to write a tell-all book when you get famous, and who needs that?
I agree with that.
I've had a couple of people. I can make you rich if you just do what I tell you. I'm like, not quite there yet, but I'm working on it, and I hypnotize them deeply, and they all do what I ask them to do. And in a hypnosis show, sometimes a person pops out of hypnosis. I've often said, if a person's bladder gets full, that kind of trumps being hypnotized. But I've also had tremendous amounts of people in the audience go into hypnosis watching me work. And if I don't have an assistant that night, because not always do I have an assistant, I sometimes have to run out into the audience and grab people and bring them in.
I've seen that at shows before too, yeah.
I did one at the Dead Poets Society School that Robin Williams filmed the movie in Delaware at this location. And they're very supported by the DuPont family. And there's plaques all over the place. DuPont, this renovation done by, whatever, sponsored by. And they have this amphitheater where it's like 6 or 7 stories tall going up in the back. And for some reason, they put a split down the middle. Why? I have no clue. And up above on the ceiling, they've got this like room that comes down off the ceiling where they run the lights and the sound. And because of that split, I had people going into hypnosis like 5 stories up on this side, run down the stairs, bring them up onto the stage, 6 or 7 stories up on this side, run down. And I'm like, and for the next, and I used to live in an apartment building in Manhattan years ago where it was 5 stories up and down. But unless you're used to doing 5 stories 3 or 4 times a day up and down,
that's a book that I pondered writing, is all the different crazy things that happen to entertainers.
Yeah, I have a lot of those stories.
I'll bet. So is John Cerbone your real name, or you ever thought about doing a stage name like Marshall Silver or anything like that?
No, I kind of got stuck with this name when I was born. You know, I mean, this is just who I am. But thank you. I always tell people be careful with my last name. It's got a bone in it, you know, like me reading chicken or something or steak.
Chokes
But
on your last name, right?
yeah, but when I was born, my mother looked into the baby room and they misspelled my name on the baby bracelet. She said, "That's my kid's." I always made the joke my entire life. I could have happy, wealthy parents somewhere. You know what I mean? But because I got picked out rather than delivered properly to my mother's arms. But I have been in situations with the shows where people have said to me, "Oh, you've named yourself after the Sorbonne University." I said, "It's not spelled the same way." And who would come up with this last name? Seriously, you know? So this is who I am. The stage name, the Trance-Master, came from Orman McGill putting a suggestion into my mind. I was having a conversation with him. And back in those days, we had this dial into a phone computer for 3 cents a minute gig thing going before it was all cell phones for the youngsters out there watching this. When it was all free, like, you know, state to state service and built into the system. And he said to me, "You need a stage name." I was Dr. Zom because back in the days in the 50s and 60s, zombies were very big. They're back now, you know, hard to get rid of those zombies apparently. And I went to sleep. He put that suggestion into my head and I had a dream that I was doing a show for a large community of people in a very large theater. There was maybe 2,000 people in the room. And when I came off the stage, these 2 elderly ladies came up to me and said, "You're such a trance master." And I woke up and I wrote it down. And I called him up the next day. He said, "One of my nicknames is the Dean of American Hypnotism. And as the Dean of American Hypnotism, I certify that as your stage name for the rest of your career." And then I put it up on the internet, and other people thought they would take that for themselves. So now I put a trademark on it.
That's a good idea.
Government, so that's mine. Haha.
For marketing, it's good to have a brand that you can capture. That's why I've got MagicBrad. I got that. That's my domain, and that's my brand. So, what types of shows do you like doing? Do you like the corporate stuff, or you like the lock-in, the high school graduation parties, or do you like the public events, the big theaters, or what's your favorite?
I love all of them. I just
doesn't matter.
I love working. I love being in front of an audience. I'd rather be in front of an audience than sitting downstairs in this home of mine watching television or something. I love the big theater shows because they're amazing, especially if you have backup like in Las Vegas or Atlantic City. I love blowing the minds of the tech crew when I walk off the stage and their mouths are hanging open and their eyes are popping out of their heads. I'm like, "Did you enjoy the show or did you get this?" Because they can't believe what they just saw me do, because I came up on rock concerts. Like my first concert at 14 was Black Sabbath. I didn't even know who they were. This guy across the street, my friend's brother, had some tickets and we went to see them. And I've seen lots of live performances living in New York City, from Van Halen and the Rolling Stones and ELP, and it goes on. I could go on for hours about that. I've seen all 3 incarnations of Van Halen with singers and things. And if you're not up there ripping it up like it's the last thing on earth you're ever going to do, then why even step onto a stage is the attitude I've got about this stuff. So I'm not in competition with anybody else but me. I want to outdo myself every time I do that.
Good way to do it. That's a good way to look at it.
And the concerts and stuff, you know, concert shows, concert halls, large theaters, I love them. I do a lot of Jewish community shows in New York City. Sometimes I'm working in small rooms or on risers, and they'll put, like it happened a couple of weeks ago, they put tablecloths behind me to make like a backdrop. And there's risers and there's no railing. And I'm dancing on about that much space, not to fall off the stage, but the people in front of me, make sure the chairs don't fly off the stage backwards. I love doing the lock-in shows because it's keeping the kids safe, although it does take me 4 or 5 days now to get back into a regular rhythm of normal sleep. And, you know,
right. You're doing your shows at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, going to bed at 7 in the morning is no picnic. Given a choice between going to bed at 7 in the morning and a picnic, I'd probably take the picnic.
Mm-hmm.
They pay me. But I've worked outdoors when it starts raining. I've worked outdoors when it starts snowing. I did a show one time for an East Indian family of 450 people. And at the end of the show, it started to rain during the show. It was outdoors. And at the end, a rainbow appeared behind us. And because of their background, they thought I manufactured a rainbow. If I could make rainbows, you know, I'd be doing the shows and being the rainbow guy at the Super Bowl. And now the Rainbow Man, you know.
My friend John Ivan Palmer, we were in Jamaica. He was doing a show in Jamaica, And as he was doing the show, a bunch of bats came into the auditorium. There were bats flying all over the place. All the Jamaicans, man, you got voodoo.
Yeah, but you got to roll with it. I had people kneeling in the mud, touching my toe because they thought they could make a rainbow with their head and their knees and hands in the mud. And I was soaked in my clothing like I dove into a pool of water. I was drenched. And they were like, "Can you do a second show?" I said, "If I can go home and get some fresh clothes, I'm not going to stand here. Do you have a washing machine in there, a dryer?" No, we're building a hotel here eventually. I'm like, just my luck. I'm here too soon,
Wow.
But I've been through some crazy stuff. I've had people in the shows do. That's the part of the show I love the most is things that happen I don't expect. For example, I was in Manhattan being interviewed by a female celebrity, and she wanted to take training with me, so she wanted to interview me first. And I was coming back from Manhattan to Staten Island, which is a bit of a hike. And I get a phone call in the car going into the Holland Tunnel. "What are you doing tomorrow morning at 4:00 in the morning?" I said, "Getting sheet wrinkles on my face." No. You're going to be up in Massachusetts doing a show. The hypnotist from California couldn't make it. I was home for 25 minutes, had to book a hotel, pack the car, pack clothes, pack equipment, and then go up there. Got stuck in a traffic jam. Took me 5 hours to get up there. There was 5 guys with a bobcat breaking up the road in the rain. I don't know why. And when I got up there, I did a new routine I hadn't used before, which was on the count of 3, a sheepdog that loves you a little too much is licking your face. Make that dog licking face we all make. And the 3 girls in the center started to like French kiss the dog back, the imaginary sheepdog.
Oh, God.
And I just fell over laughing. I had tears running down my face. And I look forward to those moments when I laugh. Like I'm in character, I'm doing the show, I'm presenting, I'm full of energy. And then somewhere, I just have to grab the back of a chair and not fall on my face from laughing. I had a woman one time this guy's a very famous man in show business. He's a media mogul. And I've done some shows at his home. And I didn't say to get up. I told everybody stay in the seats. It was only a man, a woman, and a man. Very small amount of people in the room. And I said, "You'll start flirting with the most attractive person in the room." And she jumped up and started licking my ear. There's tears flowing down my face, and I couldn't stop laughing for 35 or 40 seconds, which doesn't sound like much. But when you're in front of an audience, that's a long time. And I'm thinking, you got to stop laughing. And if she's doing this, I'm thinking, and she looked like a supermodel. And I think she was actually. And I was thinking, this is not so terrible, but you got to get back in and do what you got to do. So I've been through a lot of crazy. I've done shows where it starts snowing outdoors. It's 55 degrees.
There's probably a lot of stories that performers have. Yeah. Are you considering retiring anytime soon, or is this
never? Never. As long as I can breathe, walk, and do these shows, I'm doing them. I love it too much.
That's kind of where I'm at too. I don't want to quit. Yeah. Just keep on going.
Well, what am I going to do? I'll see. I saw what happened to my dad when he retired. Or he went to the luncheonette, or he stopped over at the auto mechanic, or he had nothing to do. Why? If I'm blessed, let's say we're blessed with talent to go perform, yourself, myself, other performers, then why would I just throw that in the street? I think it's a blessing on some level.
Also, you're self-employed, so you got the idea to dial it up, dial it down, take the dates you want to, and then book the ones you want, and take.
Yeah, I mean, the market has changed a lot in the last 10 years or so, especially after COVID. Some of these job sites I'm getting like offers for $300 shows in Utah and Manitoba and other places. It's not viable. But when I'm out there doing the corporate events, or I'm doing some of these large theaters and different things that I work in, that to me is just nirvana. That's just happiness and joy personified.
Well, John, we've gone for 24 minutes almost. Is there anything that you want to share? And then also, how do people get a hold of you? And I'm kind of curious if you have anything on your website that people can like download to get a better idea of how to book you, and like you got a media kit or something like that on your.
Yeah, I've got a very intensive website. It's hypnosisstageshow.com. Right there on the screen. That's perfect. hypnosisstageshow.com. I do have a store. There's over 100 MP3s for the clinical stuff, for motivation, even for new hypnotists to how to do a pre-talk and a private session. I did one at one of these conferences, and the old timers were saying it's the best they ever heard. I got hugged by some of these old people, and they run up. I'm like, what did I do? What did I do? And I have the Speed Trance DVD set up there, converted into digital download now, so people can just download that and start practicing. I am willing to travel any place. I've done shows through translators. I can work anywhere in the world now since I figured out how to work through translators. So I am wide open to possibilities. I've appeared on major TV networks and some local ones too, and even public access and radio. And I got a great face for radio. It's an old Rodney Dangerfield joke. I've even written comedy for him years ago when he was alive. I never met him. I used to send him emails. But if you want to learn, you want to have me come in and do a class someplace to do the speed inductions. I've trained a lot of magicians. A lot of magicians really want to actually hypnotize people. They don't want to just do some flourish and whatever they would do.
They do, because it packs a lot smaller than them big zigzag boxes and everything.
Yeah. So the idea is to get out there and bang this out. I did a class one time, a 2-day class, and the magician couldn't be there the second day. And they said, what happened? I said, he vanished, but then they do that. So, you know, that was kind of my joke about that. Thanks so much for having me. And to everybody watching, thanks so much.
I'm going to put you into a little green room. We got some more digital hors d'oeuvres. We had the catering company swap all that stuff out. You can go ahead and help yourself. If you want to stick around, then we can have a little conversation before you disappear. But if you got to get going, I totally understand.
I'll hang.
So I'm going to sign this one off. Hey, John, I really appreciate you taking the time, and perhaps we'll do it again soon, or I'll see you on Monday at Claude's thing. Okay.
Thanks so much.
There you have it, John Cerbone. HypnosisStageShow.com. It's right there, big and bold. HypnosisStageShow.com. And it sounds like he will have tricks will travel, so to speak. Go any place he needs to go. So that's the story for the show here. Synergy Cafe is what I call it. And if you want to be a guest on the show, or if you have any questions, you can get a hold of me and I can turn you on to John, or you can just Google his name and you'll be able to find it. Okay? Peace, love, and happiness. Enjoy the rest of your day. Be good. Be kind. Be nice. Did I say be nice? Be nice. Thanks. Peace.